Hey everyone, Regal Reviews here. It is White Rice Wednesday, so that means it's time for my Survivor recap. So to recap on this week's episode, it basically starts off with them coming back from Tribal after Scott was blindsided, and Jason is upset. I mean, anybody would be in that situation when you are that close to somebody in your alliance and they get voted off. But Aubrey and her alliance are pleasantly surprised that their plan worked. But it also puts, I think Ty made a great move for himself because Scott and Jason were that close and they were going to vote Ty off anyway next when he doesn't win immunity. So I definitely think he's he's in a good position, but it also makes him a threat just because he has that immunity idol and he also has that advantage. So, they're going to want to flush that out. So the next day, Ty does go over to Jason and apologizes because he was loyal to them, but at the same time, he says to Jason what I just told you, that Jason and Scott were controlling everything and he wasn't included, and he felt like he needed to get rid of that soon. And Jason respects it as a fan for playing that, but at the same time, he's mad. But what I didn't understand is that he didn't throw a big fit. Like when Nick got voted off, him and Scott like took away the machete and everything to try to starve everyone. But Scott gets voted off and he doesn't throw this big fit or anything. So Jason decides that Ty definitely needs to go next because he's a huge threat, and also because he wants revenge because he got off his buddy. So the reward challenge was interesting. They were paired off in three groups of two, which means one person wouldn't participate, and Jason ended up pulling the rock that would disclude you. So the teams were Joe and Ty, Michelle and Sydney, and Julia and Aubrey, and all teams did great in the reward challenge. I mean, it was pretty neck and neck there for a while, and I was secretly hoping that Joe would win solely because he's always really slow in the immunity challenges, and I don't believe he's actually won a reward challenge yet. But it ended up being Sydney and Michelle that run the reward challenge, and they got to go to a separate beach and dine on fried chicken. Again, lots of the unhealthy food options here. But Jeff made it interesting because Sydney and Michelle got to choose one person to go with them, and that would include Jason too. But Michelle and Sydney both had to agree on it, and they decided to bring Aubrey with them. And the girls had a great time, but Michelle took the opportunity to talk with them and see where she's at because she felt a little bit uneasy that she was left out of the last vote. And Aubrey and Sydney reassure her that they trust her and everything. And Aubrey even said that Michelle has proved her loyalty to them and has always voted with them, with the exception of the last vote where they couldn't have included her. So Michelle feels reassured. But back at camp, Julia and Jason are scheming, and they decide they definitely want Ty gone. But pardon my language here, but Julia is a major bitch. She said that as soon as Ty's gone, she's going to kill Mark, and she's going to love it so much. And for those of you who don't know who Mark is Ty's pet chicken, who he's had since like the episode 1. And you know Ty, he's like a huge animal lover, and I just thought that was so cold-hearted for Julia to say that. And Julia seems very conceited to me. She just seems to like basically be riding coattails. And what I didn't understand is that when they came back from Tribal, the last Tribal, she said, well, I'm just frustrated because I don't know why you guys didn't include me. Like, are you kidding me? You're so two-faced. I mean, you even said it yourself that you're playing both sides. So, of course they're not going to tell you the plan because you're just going to go right and tell Jason and Scott what the plan is. So, I mean, they're not going to tell the plan. The immunity challenge was one of my favorite challenges, and that's the immunity challenge. And they had to memorize about like 15 to 18 different numbers and symbols while competing in an obstacle course too. And it it was kind of sad because, Joe went through the obstacle course and memorized the numbers, but he was so tired he dropped out of the challenge. And it was between Jason, Julia, and Michelle. And Jason went to try to unlock the lock, and it didn't work, so he had to go back. So Julia's and Michelle worked, so they basically had to unscramble the word, and in the end, it ended up being Michelle that won, and it was impressive because she didn't have to go back. She memorized all the numbers, so congrats to Michelle for winning immunity. I know that's not an easy thing to do. So that makes things at camp quite interesting because obviously, like I've said, that Jason and Julia won tie gum, but since they're on the bottom, they need two other people to make it a majority vote. And for all they know they think Michelle's with them. And what was interesting is that Jason has in his alliance has been trying to get Sydney gone for the past how many episodes, but he tries to work with Sydney and tries to see if she'll go with Ty. I mean vote Ty off. And Aubrey's alliance was originally going to try to get Jason off, but they decided to go for Julia because with Jason on the jury, they either like him or they don't like him. And with Julia, she's been able to maneuver and manipulate her way through the game, so they don't want to have her go to the end. And they instruct Michelle and Sydney when they go have their talks with Julia and Jason to say they're going with the Ty thing. And Ty feels a little bit uneasy that his name's being thrown out there. I mean, anybody would be in that situation, but Michelle feels a bit uneasy to vote Julia's name down, put her name down on the paper because her and Julia started off in the same tribe and they have been together since day one and they have been really close. But she wants to try to make the best move for her, and she tells Julia, as far as Julia knows, that she's going to go with Ty, and Sydney says the same thing about Jason, that she's going to go with Ty, but Sydney and Michelle have a talk, and they have a lot of options, but that they have to go for their gut. So Tribal was an interesting one because Julia brought up that in that 5, there's obviously someone who's number 5, and she says that's definitely Michelle and Sydney, and Sydney is definitely not number 5 in that alliance. I definitely think Aubrey's number 1, but I definitely think her and Sydney are kind of running the show. I think Sydney is kind of like her co-pilot. And Michelle brings up that they want to be able to take people to the finals who she basically says that the jury's not going to vote for somebody who's manipulative. They probably vote for somebody who's made big moves in the game, who can sit there and share a story, share what they did in the game. And I guess it depends on who the juror is because each juror is different, has their own beliefs and perspectives. But Julia also said that, oh no, actually I think it was Jason who said that Aubrey and Joe are just as close as me and Scott were, and I disagree with that 100%. I mean, you could kind of make that argument with Michelle and Julia, but they definitely were not as close as Jason and Scott were. I think, if anybody, if Aubrey's close to anyone, I think she's close to Sydney right now. And Jason's, upset nobody will work with him, but, then again, they won't. But, when the votes came in, Ty actually whispered to Aubrey, "Should I play my idol?" And she says, "To go with your gut, basically." And when the votes are read, Ty decides not to play his idol. So, in the end, it ended up being Julia who was voted out, and I am so glad to see her gone because she was a two-faced rat, and she just seems so full of herself that I'm just glad she's gone. But what was interesting at Tribal is that they said that I think it was Jason that said that the 5 there are like a clique. I'm like, they are not a clique. You're just whiny because your clique broke up. But after this episode, I definitely think that Ty is in a great position because um, if he can make it next episode without having his name written down, he still has that idol. I mean, the last time he can play it is at the final five, and I believe that's the same thing goes with the advantage. So that would guarantee him a spot with the at the final to the final four, guaranteed if he makes it to the final five. Usually when there's final six, usually that's the loved ones episode. So I'm hoping that's next week. That's always one of my favorite episodes. I don't know about you guys, but it's always very heartwarming to see their family come out. It's just very touching, to see their family come out after not seeing them for how long, and seeing their family story and family history, and it kind of reminds you of what they're playing for. But it seems like there's gonna be a shakeup somewhat in the Alliance of Five, so we'll have to wait and see about that. I definitely think that Ty can go far. He's playing a great game socially, and he definitely, on one end, he's playing a great game, but on another end, someone can argue that he has been manipulative. So he'd be very interesting to take to the finals. But like I've mentioned before, I definitely hope Aubrey can win this thing because she's definitely a leader and she has made a lot of great moves and she definitely has her head in the game. So if I was on the jury, Aubrey would definitely have my vote. So I hope you guys enjoyed my Survivor recap. I hope you guys enjoyed tonight's Survivor. If you want to check out Survivor, it is on Wednesdays, 8 p.m. on CBS. Like, subscribe, and remember, stay regal.